that you'll join with AFP and become involved in the fight. So I'm just going to stop there and start taking questions. And again, I need to go off to a board meeting, but I'll answer as many as I can, and then I want to leave some time for Dale to kind of tell you his story too. Michael.
Just two questions that I want you to touch on.
Yeah.
We touched on the co-op option that they talked about recently. And then two, why is young, healthy people, should we really care about health care? Why is it an important issue for us to consider? When most of us are healthy, yeah, we're not going to really worry about this for, 50 years, however long it is. Sure.
Well, let me start with the...
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. The question was, first of all, about the co-ops that have been proposed out there. And second is, why should young, healthy people be concerned about health care? On the co-op issue, first of all, a co-op is better than government-run health care. But it isn't necessary. There are other free market ways of doing this. And, Paul could tell you all kinds of good ways to have health reform from a free market standpoint that would be better. That is the Democrats' watered-down public option plan, is to do co-ops that the government controls. So, I think currently the plan, the federal Employees Health Benefits Plan, is a good plan of a current system where you have several health insurance plans under one plan, and as a federal employee you can pick and choose which one you want. That's pretty good under our system, but we can do better. We can be more free market. Why doesn't every American have that opportunity? And they would if you get insurance commissioners and others out of the way. Second, you asked about why should young people care. For the same reason you should care about car insurance or life insurance or anything else. You're also a responsible adult, and you should care. But you don't have to have the same amount of coverage that I do. I have kids. I have, So that's part of the problem with the plan that the president has proposed. It's a one-size-fits-all. It's maternity for everybody. It's prostate exams for everybody, whether you have a prostate or not. I mean, you don't need that kind of a plan. And so, everybody should be responsible, take into account their own health care. But it's different for different people. There are some people who choose not to have insurance, have a co-op with their neighbors or their church, and go to a doctor as a group and say, if you'll treat us for $25 an office visit, we'll visit you. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're Americans. We should all be able to make those choices. So, is there another question? Yes, sir.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I had a couple questions for you. You mentioned the free market, but I didn't in the reports, which I was excited to hear about. But I didn't hear anything about the AMA. Could you speak to the AMA and any reforms that we might have on the table? And if not, why don't you? And then second question would be, can you speak to the constitutionality of an employer-paid healthcare system? And could you answer the question of whether or not the employer-paid healthcare system was brought out during a time when they had federal maximum wage law?
Lots of questions. I'll try and hit them all. I don't know if I can remember them all. I don't represent the AMA, thankfully. And I'm pretty sure the AMA doesn't represent most doctors either.
15 to 20%.
15 to 20% of doctors are in it. I debated the head of the Colorado Medical Society on TV the other day, and to me, this is pretty simple stuff. I use the example of my son, who's a juvenile diabetic and is on an insulin pump that was developed and created here in the United States of America. And I asked that doctor, name another country where he would get better care for his diabetes. He couldn't think of one, because there isn't one. I mean, the bottom line is in America, whether you're a citizen or not, no matter what stage in life you are, no matter what your income is, if you walk into a hospital and you have chest pain, they don't ask for your green card, they don't ask anything, they throw you on a table and they treat you. And there aren't a lot of countries in the world that do that. So we have the best care anywhere in the world. You talked about the constitutionality of what was your question? Employer pay?
And whether or not it was brought out during a federal maximum wage law.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to the federal maximum wage law. You must, by the question. Was it?
World War
Okay.
II.
Okay. Look, I think that employers ought to be allowed to offer those, but it isn't a guaranteed right. I mean, and we've sort of come to expect it. I'm not sure it's the greatest model anymore because you're getting something and not understanding the true cost of what you're getting, and that's a problem. As to the constitutionality of it, I just, if you don't know, I do a talk show on KBOR, and I'll just promote that if I can, on Saturdays at 8 o'clock, 7:40 a.m. But I guest hosted Richard Randall's show and got the call a few minutes before the show started and asked if I'd do it. He already had a guest. He had Mike Caller, who many of you may know, who has written a book called The Constitution Made Easy, and it's a way for people to look at the Constitution and study it in modern language, so that it's a little easier to understand it for kids and things in particular. He and I talked about that. Is any of this constitutional? What gives the federal government the authority to start setting up a public health program? It doesn't. Article 1 is pretty clear about what Congress can do and reserves everything else for the states, right? Yeah. So, we're exceeding. Look, I mean, we can't. There's no need to get into a debate about whether or not we're exceeding constitutional authority. I think we can all answer, yes, we are. And the question is, who is exceeding it more by their plan? I mean, Republicans have exceeded their constitutional authority. One more real quick.
I was just wondering if you had, because a world-class doctor from Italy can't practice in America, but a world-class economist, biologist, physicist, veterinarian can practice in America.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, would you address that part of the AMA as kind of like a union card, and how they might, or they may or may not intentionally.
Or in other words, whether they would want to restrict the doctor who is in practice or licensed in America. Oh, I think not only doctors do that, chiropractors do it, hairstylists do it, everybody does. You create a licensing structure there. I'm a believer that there ought to be some, I'm not suggesting it's a federal government that licenses doctors, but I believe there ought to be some structure there so that people know that when you go to a doctor, have some training. Yeah. Sir? Got that? Okay. Okay, gotcha, Paul.
Jeff, you mentioned your observation of sort of already of grassroots activists
Yeah.
served over the last few months. And it's clear that we have to fund ourselves. The problem to me is that we've also funded their money. We fund the left's money. We've been doing it for years now with Republican votes. We fund Acorn year after year. And finally, it's gotten so close they shut it down. But they'll just change their name and move somewhere else.
Sure.
How do we stop from using our money to fund our enemies?
That's the question of the day. First of all, it has been great watching this Acorn stuff unfold. They are mobsters. I mean, they're nothing more than mobsters who we are funding, and it's maddening to see what's happening. And my understanding is that there's more. They're going to stop for a while with the tapes, but that there is more to come. Now, what could be worse than what we saw last night? I don't know, but apparently there's stuff out there. We have to have people who are going to go to Congress or to the state legislature or whatever, and who are willing to make the tough call, and who are willing to stand up. We had a vote today to defund Acorn in the House, and it passed overwhelmingly, amen, but there were still over 70 members of the House who voted to still fund Acorn. 2 from Colorado, you ought to call them, Diana DeGette and Jared Polis, both voted to continue funding of Acorn in a vote today.
Can you say that just a little bit louder, please?
Sure. Diana DeGette and Jared Polis. Yeah, 1st District and the 2nd Congressional District, right, up in Boulder. That doesn't surprise you, I'm sure. They probably have a nice chapter of Acorn up in Boulder, yes. So, yes, sir.
Just to expand a little bit on your comment about why should young people care, I think one thing you also overlook